بیا شوہر قدم قدم پہ ملی یہ کامیابیاں شوہر قدم قدم پہ ملی نصیب ایسا ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے طواف میں نے کیا تھی صحیح مربانی طواف میں نے کیا تھی صحیح مربانی جو میں نے میرا کیا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر میں دشمنوں سے بچا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے پسند ہے اس میں اجادے کا کچھ جمال نہیں پسند ہے اس میں اجادے کا کچھ جمال نہیں عروج اس کو ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں کی دعا جنت کی ماں کی دعا جنت کی ماں کی دعا جنت کی ماں کی دعا جنت کی
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marsburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus, Saccoor, and I will be hosting the show together with Sumaya Khan. She is the presenter on education matters or school matters. She's also the chair of the Women's League for United for Palestine. We will be in your company for the next 2 hours. We will be interviewing our guest shortly. Today, the date is the 29th of October, 2025, 8 Jumada al-Ula, 1447 AH. We have quite a diverse and interesting show this evening. I'm pleased to be back after a little bit of a break, and Sumaya hosted the the shows in the last few weeks. Well, alhamdulillah, we are back, and hopefully we will go through some interesting topics for this evening. The first one is around the Palestinian issue, the way forward. Will Israel hold on to the ceasefire? Further, we'll do an analysis on the Gaza peace plan, because there's a lot of comments coming through, but as we speak, alhamdulillah, some aid is coming in, but there's sort of a lot of concerns whether this peace plan will work. We'll do an update on service delivery in Ethekwini. A lot of people are concerned about the billing, the extension of the debt relief program. So we'll unpack that later in the program. We'll do an update on the Mkhwanazi inquest, which is a topical subject, and we know exactly the inquiry is heating up. And later in the program, we'll do our global financial indicators. Our guest in the studio with me, I have, as I said, Sumaya Khan. She's a presenter on School Matters. She also does another program on youth, which took place between 6 and 7 today. So she's joining me to co-host, and then she's wearing a cap on the United for Palestine. So she will be covering the Palestinian issues. We will be interviewing Mustafa Darsot. He's a political and social justice activist, quite a popular individual. He does shows in Al-Ansar on Saturdays between, I think, 11 and 1 o'clock, and he covers a whole lot of diverse issues. We will also be interviewing Dr. Naledi Pandor. She's quite a world-renowned figure. We know she was quite active in the ICJ matter when she was former minister of DIRCO, chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Later on in the program, we'll interview MP Imran Subrathie, who will give us an update on the Mkhwanazi inquest. We will also interview Councillor Ernest Smith. He's the councillor in Ward 27. He'll give us an update on certain service delivery issues in council. Abdul Falodia, who is the president of United for Palestine, chairman of ORA, Overboard Ratepayers Association. He will join us later in the studio and comment on service delivery issues. So before I hand over to Sumaya to do the interviews on the Palestinian, she's quite au fait with the whole setup. I want to play a small clip on the woman of Gaza. Please catch a listen, a very interesting clip.
Women of Gaza, we say thank you. We saw you burying your children, then you raised your hands rather than complaining at Allah. You say, oh Allah, continue taking from our blood till you are pleased. To the men of Gaza, we say thank you for showing us that a people who believe that death is not the end can never be defeated. Thank you for helping us understanding verses of the Quran that we previously did not understand until we saw you. Thank you for removing from the hearts of 2 billion Muslims around the world the fear of any human being but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us at a time when we thought that the Ummah of Islam had died. You have just shown us that the Ummah has a pulse, not just that the Ummah is brimming with life. And from all of the generations of the Muslims to walk this earth in recent times, by Allah, this is the greatest and finest of all Muslim generations. And time will show that this prediction and this assessment is true.
Alhamdulillah, the brother is just reminding us of the control Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in the world. In the time of the Sahaba Ikram, we know that when they went through various battles, they turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam reminded them that Allah is in control, and alhamdulillah, they were victorious as long as they always obeyed Allah's commandments as shown to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Before Sumaya interviews Mustafa Darsot, I want to play a clip on the tribute for Palestine.
फलस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आका को दुखड़ा सुनाया तो फिर क्या करोगे फलस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आका को दुखड़ा सुनाया तो फिर क्या करोगे अगर मुस्तफा ने भी नाराज होकर तो खफना फिराया तो फिर क्या करोगे फलस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आका को दुखड़ा सुनाया तो फिर क्या करोगे फलस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आका को दुखड़ा सुनाया तो फिर क्या करोगे उड़ी जा रही लाशें बन के ऐसे इलाही की जानिब उड़ी जा रही है शहीदों की लाशें बन के ऐसे इलाही की जानिब अगर ये मनाज़िर तुम्हारे घरों खुदा ने दिखाया तो फिर क्या करोगे फिलिस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आकर को दुखड़ा सिखाया तो फिर क्या करोगे फिलिस्तीनियों ने क़यामत में आकर को दुखड़ा सिखाया फिर क्या करोगे जो तुम खा रहे हो ये है उनकी जो तुम पी रहे हो ये सब खो है तुम खा रहे हो ये लाशें हैं उनकी जो तुम पी रहे हो ये सब खो है उनका खुदा
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was quite an emotional nasheed presented by a Pakistani nasheed artist. We plan to get Dr. Naledi Pandor on the line, but before that, I'd like to welcome Sumaya Khan. Sumaya, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thanks for hosting News in Focus, for the few weeks, and thanks for joining us and co-hosting the show this evening.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. Yunus, Saccoor, alhamdulillah, great to have you back, and thank you once again for having me to co-host with you.
Okay, while we're trying to link up with Naledi Pandor, I'd like to check with you as the chairperson of United for Palestine that there's a lot of happenings, and at the moment we know there's a ceasefire. We know that there's a peace plan in place. We are aware that Sky News has investigated and identified 4 Palestinian militias opposed to Hamas now operating in Israel-controlled areas along the yellow line under the Trump ceasefire map. So it's cause for concern that Israel is beginning to use spies to go in there and work with the people. The spies are actually Ashraf al-Mansi in the north, Fatah-affiliated clan leader Rami Khalas in the east, Hossam al-Ataf Khan Yunus, and Yasser Abu Shadab in East Rafah. So obviously there's a lot of spies, and Israel are using, as usual, these type of tactics. Now, what I'd like to know from your side as chairperson of United for Palestine, we don't want to take things for granted in terms of the ceasefire and peace plan. But Hamas took the decision of accepting because they were worried about the indiscriminate killings and massacres and all that are taking place. So in an endeavor to ensure that the people get some kind of relief and humanitarian aid, they accepted the peace plan subject to certain amendments, which is still under discussion. So those various mediators that have been involved have ultimately indicated that it's a start of a process to follow. So perhaps you just want to comment on that before we link up to Naledi Pandor.
Well, the Gaza peace plan, well, when we look at it, right, the current peace plan process for Gaza, the Strip, and the wider West Bank, Israeli, if you're looking at the Palestinian context, USA peace plan for Gaza proposes, to end the war, return of hostages. But there's so many questions being asked. The main points of Gaza peace plan is the ceasefire and the prisoner exchange. Stop the war, return all hostages and prisoners. But is that really happening, or how far is that happening? And also when we're looking at, demilitarization and security, Hamas removed from leadership no tunnels or weapons, Gaza safe for Israel and the world. And that's something which everyone is questioning. When you look at journalists, and maybe later on our brother Mustafa Darsot can probably tell us more about that. Reconstruction plan, rebuild Gaza. We're looking at jobs, infrastructure, and economy for residents. Will this happen? How long would this take, And transitional governance, temporary administration by Palestinian technocrats, they're overseen by international bodies. So how much do we know? Is it what we are following from social media and journalism, what they want to be, the world to see? And also the path to long-term peace, education and de-radicalization programs with potential for future Palestinian statehood, if agreed. So again, we'll basically be dissecting the peace plan to find out what is going on, and is it just a farce? Is it for real? Is it going to really materialize 100%?
Okay, we just got feedback from Naledi Pandor is that she's got a blackout or a power failure. I don't know whether load shedding is starting in those areas. So Sumaya, you may want to continue the interview with Brother Mustafa Darsot in the meanwhile until we link up with Naledi Pandor. Sumaya?
Okay, yes, Mr. Brother Mustafa Darsot, our political and social justice activist. Jazakallah for being here this evening. I know especially when you're having News in Focus in the evening, everyone is a bit mentally drained, but alhamdulillah, we continue to educate, uplift, and let everybody knows what's happening around the world. Looking at Gaza peace plan, as we discussed, is this peace plan really a chance to end the violence in Gaza or just temporary calm? That's the question. Is it just temporary calm?
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Sumaya, and to you as well, Yunus. Thank you for having me on the program. Well, in order to answer your question, it's a temporary calm.
Yeah.
Because one has to understand what the obviously from the West, the agenda, and from the Americans who are trying to, play this nicety role of peacekeeping when they have been the biggest culprits in warmongering over the past 2 centuries, especially. And for them to, it's so strange, and you've got an unpredictable lunatic like Donald Trump, who's heading the so-called initiative. It's definitely temporary, and in fact, if you just see some of the statements made lately, you wonder sometimes, are they really genuine? Because we know and we've seen what he's done in his first term, how he's used his son-in-law, or should we say, how his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is an ardent, known Zionist, used his position within the White House with the full blessing and endorsement of Donald Trump to bring about the Abraham Accords, to recognize Jerusalem as the capital by moving the U.S. embassy there, to annexation of the West Bank. And last week, while J.D. Vance was in Israel, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, moved 2 resolutions about annexing the West Bank formally.
Sumaya, I just want to intervene. I think we got Naledi Pandor live on the line. Perhaps you just want to continue. Bismillah, if you could just welcome Naledi and inshallah continue with the interview.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Jazakallah once again for taking
I'm
your
waiting for them
time in this busy evening and day to link up with us in News in Focus. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Do we have Dr. Naledi Pandor online? Okay, I think our tech is trying to link up with her.
She's online, and I think the line is a bit unclear, but I'm sure she'll come online soon. I can see her on the StreamYard. Dr. Naledi, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And can you hear us, Doctor? She's encountering some difficulties. I think her PA is just trying to link her up, and hopefully we should get linked up shortly. In the interim, Mustafa, Dr. Naledi was quite actively involved in the ICG matter, and there is calls from USA to discreetly see if they can get this matter shelved. But, those that are involved are persistent. The president said that will continue, and whatever takes place will. Naledi perhaps will give us an update. Perhaps before we link up to Dr. Naledi, I just want to check on your side, the impact of that ICG case. It had a tremendous impact on not only the peace plan, but the world comes to know that link back with Naledi.
Well, look, firstly, it's been a landmark initiative, and it was thanks to Dr. Naledi Pandor for being the person to spearhead and instrumental in making this a possibility. Had South Africa's case not gone forward to the ICJ, who would have known? There would have been, as far as I'm concerned, much of the world would have been in silence. So this has obviously, what we can say, upset the apple cart, and has obviously woken up those nations who have been contemplating whether should we or shouldn't we, to eventually come forward and say, right, we join South Africa's effort as well, and we also co-applicants to this matter. And given the recent developments, whether it was the ICJ in the ruling last week, and of course with the ICC rejecting Israel's appeal to stall the arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, South Africa's effort with the ICJ has obviously woken up. You've got leading countries in Europe who are coming forward, like Spain, Ireland, etc. And you could see at this recent United Nations General Assembly just over a month ago, where leaders took to the podium from different countries and were hammering out at Israel over this genocide that's happening in Gaza.
Now, I mentioned earlier about these 4 Palestinian militias inside Gaza. They've been put there to weaken Hamas as part of what military leaders call Project New Gaza. Now, Hossam al-Astal, head of one of the groups, said that the militias are coordinating their efforts to remove Hamas from power. So obviously Hamas is a threat to Israel, and they don't want to become part of the peace plan. He claimed that Yasser Abu Shabab and Ashraf al-Mansi, who I spoke about earlier, leaders of other groups, have also joined the project. All 4 are reportedly positioned along the yellow line in areas, as I mentioned. Now, Astal told Sky News his headquarters is only 700 meters from an Israeli military outpost, and that an Israeli coordinator has agreed to establish a green zone free of shelling or gunfire. Now, is this, a plan of Israel to destabilize Hamas and try to remove them from power?
Oh, most definitely. It's definitely a plan. One has to look at who's the architects behind this. And apart from the usual suspects of America, Britain, etc., the UAE is one that's very instrumental in this. And why the UAE? Why not Saudi Arabia, for example? You just have to look at who from the Palestinians is based in the UAE. It's none other than the danger man, Mohammed Dahlan, who is the right hand to MBZ. And if one has to Google Mohammed Dahlan, has to see who he is, has to see what sort of pull and control this man wields, what power he wields. It's scary. And this actually, what you see right now is a project of this which has been conceived long ago that's playing out right now.
Now, it appears as though Egypt is also part of this grand plan, because a convoy of Egyptian trucks and engineering vehicles carrying heavy machinery crossed into Gaza overnight to assist in search for the remains of Israel captives, according to AFP footage from the scene. So, Hamas hasn't returned all the Israeli casualties.
Correct.
Now, the vehicles were seen operating in southern Gaza city of Khan Yunus early on Sunday. The Times of Israel reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this is an interesting part, had personally authorized the arrival of Egyptian team and several engineering vehicles to help locate the bodies of captives. So interestingly, you mentioned UAE, Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure whether Qatar is involved in this. They were part of the mediation team to bring about peace. But around the peace plan which Sumaya is talking about, are these devious attempts by these countries to now remove Hamas and take control? So what's your take on that issue?
As I said, as I said, the UAE is one that's very just instrumental, and you can just see it by the UAE's actions. Like, I don't know if you noticed, recently there was an arms expo that took place in the UAE a few weeks ago, and the UAE suddenly came out of nowhere and said that, because of this continued genocide, well, they never used the word genocide or what's happening or what Israel is doing to Gaza, they will ban the Israeli armaments company. Just today, it was announced that one of Israel's leading armaments company is opening an office in Abu Dhabi. So you have to look at it that this is the main architect. Egypt, you must know, will have to play along.
Mustafa, it seems as though we got a clearer line to Dr. Naledi Pandor. Dr. Pandor, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome live to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International. Dr. Pandor, we can see you. Can you hear us? Well, she's back. I know she's trying to get off the mute. We're not on mute. Okay, she can't hear at this stage. And all I can see in the background, Dr. Pandor, is your Allahu sign. I can see you.
Yeah.
But I hope we can get, sort of the sound sorted out. What we will do is we'll continue. We'll continue with Mustafa. Sumaya, I think you were chatting about the peace plan. Just continue with the peace plan. And then as soon as we get the sound back with Naledi, we'll get her on the line. We apologize for the sound challenges we're having because she's in a meeting and she came out. So maybe there's a little bit of a problem regarding to sound. Sumaya, go ahead.
Do you know, there's a question that everyone asks, especially political analysts. How realistic is the promise of of a full ceasefire and release of all the hostages?
When you say promise, Sumaya, I think the part that what Hamas is grappling with is where do they recover those remains of those few bodies of those hostages that have passed away, and because of the landscape of the scattered, of this landscape. I wouldn't say, sorry, it's not scattered, but this terrible landscape. How do you go and exhume those bodies? That's why, as what Yunus pointed out, that, Egypt has brought in this heavy earth-moving equipment in order to, find and locate those hostages, and Netanyahu authorized it. So how realistic it is, you must know from Netanyahu's point of view, it's there to save face.
Yeah.
As soon as all 250 whatever are accounted for, already you could see yesterday was just a perfect excuse. He was there at his trial, suddenly he was suddenly had to cut short, interrupt and cite that there's an emergency on hand and go and bomb Gaza and kill over 100 people.
That's the question. It's like totally
and the thing is that and if you look at the excuses, if you look at the social media, what was he saying? That apparently Hamas had produced fake bodies of the dead hostages. Then when they got caught out of that, they went and attacked some soldiers in Rafah in order to try and cover up their actions. And because of that, that's why Israel retaliated. So they'll always make an excuse.
Yeah.
Mustafa, I think we're getting her live, but the picture is a bit blurred. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Can you hear us?
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. I know your picture is blurred, but I can see the Allahu behind you quite clear. Alhamdulillah. We apologize for the difficulty in getting you, but we're delighted to have you live on Radio Al Ansar International. It's an Islamic broadcasting station from Durban. I have some prominent guests that are quite au fait and have Palestine close in their hearts. Sister Sumaya Khan, who's the chairperson of the Women's League in United for Palestine, will be interviewing you now. Sumaya, can you go ahead? Naledi is on the line.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Jazakallah for finally linking up with us and making it possible.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, I'd also like to thank the president of United for Palestine, Brother Abdul Valodia, for inviting you and, being with us this short while to give us an update. And also, well done to you, mashallah. Francesca, you were your inspiration for South Africa by hosting her.
Oh, Jazakallah for that. We were so happy to have her.
Yeah,
And she's done an excellent set of meetings throughout the country.
Alhamdulillah.
Very informative, very brave, incredible woman.
This is a question what all of us want to know. What's the deal is or was when we're looking at a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza? It went into effect on 10th of October, 2025. The ceasefire is part of a broader peace settlement plan proposed by Donald Trump and, as they say, among other actors, with many phases, hostages, prisoner exchange, humanitarian access, reconstruction, future governance and security arrangements in Gaza, ceasefire violations, violence still happening. And although the ceasefire is officially in force, attacks and strikes continue. For instance, after accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire, more than 60 killed in Gaza. It just continues. So how would you describe the current ceasefire? Is it truly holding, or is it just a pause in fighting?
I regard the peace plan with a great deal of skepticism, mainly because I've not seen it in detail. I've been trying to get a copy so that we know exactly what it says, and it seems to be a very scarce document. I'm skeptical because the reference in much of the discussion of the plan is to Israel and hardly ever to Palestine. There's been a real attempt to conflate Palestinians and the cause for freedom with one organization, Hamas. While it is an organization of the people, it is not the sum total of the Palestinian cause. And I think to make peace a security matter solely without discussing self-determination, the plan cannot be taken seriously.
You just basically describe to the world what's really happening, because everybody doesn't really fully understand the peace plan. When we're going back to humanitarian organizations, are they being allowed to work effectively or not?
Well, we're not getting the level of humanitarian aid that is required into Gaza or the occupied territories. So that's one problem. Two, the killing of Palestinians continues. So you've not had a genuine ceasefire. Israel is still allowed to operate as it wills and to kill people as it wills. So this is a very, very troubling situation. And I think what we should be insisting on is that we should get international bodies into Gaza and the occupied territories, overseen by the United Nations. We should be getting the Human Rights Council in to record the atrocities, and also international NGOs to carry on the work of research to collate the data that must be used to hold perpetrators to account. I think we should not lose sight of the fact that there's been a genocide there. And while, of course, we want peace, it can't be a quarter peace. We wish a full freedom and self-determination for the people of Palestine.
How can the world ensure accountability violation on either side?
Well, one of the things I have been trying to encourage is for us to convert a very new global movement into a solid international solidarity network that works in a coherent and coordinated fashion to mount international campaigns in support of Palestine, including boycotts by all of us and sanctions by our various countries. I think we should work at building unity, global unity. This is what helped South Africa in its struggle against apartheid. And we need to try and create a similar dynamic movement in support of the Palestinian people. The foundation is there, but someone needs to harness it and use it in a more directed and well-organized campaign.
Do you know, going back to our Palestinian brothers and sisters, ordinary families, how are ordinary families in Gaza coping, during the so-called ceasefire? Because it's not easy.
It continues to be a terrible struggle. Families do not have shelters. Very few tents have been made available. As you know, Gaza has been razed to the ground. There's no schooling for children. We don't have health facilities. So clearly, reconstruction is a major area that must be attended to. All families are suffering today. We also need to look at what the content of a global campaign should be. You will remember that South Africa led in a Free Mandela campaign. We need to mount a Free Baguti campaign so that Palestinians have their leaders determining their future and not having their future determined by capitals in Europe or America.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the mental health, what are the psychological impacts after so many months of conflicts? One will think about it. It's quite bad. Can you fill us in about that?
The Palestinian people have amazing resilience. But even for the most brave, this genocide has been a terribly debilitating experience. But you can see that the Palestinians are determined that they will continue to strive for freedom. And we need to be there to support them. We must not regard this peace plan as a conclusion. It's part of the elements that arise in a struggle. We had this attempt at Bantustans, these tricameral parliament. So the oppressor always comes up with new tricks. But we must always remember the objective is freedom, justice, and self-determination.
Trying to be positive and moving forward, how can the world ensure accountability for violations, on both sides? I asked you that earlier on. But what needs to happen immediately to protect civilians and to ensure the aid reaches them?
We must not be silent about the genocide. We must continue to say perpetrators of genocide and those who assisted them have to face the might of international law, that they must come before the ICJ. We want them in the International Criminal Court, just as happened with Serbians, so we want to see happen with the apartheid state of Israel. So we shouldn't rest in continuing to insist that justice must be seen to be done and should be practically executed.
Since you touched on the international world, do the people of Gaza do they feel heard by the international community? That's the question. Do they feel heard or still not heard?
I think there are many who feel unheard, but they sincerely appreciate the millions who have stood up, because you can see that there is a global movement on this, and they appreciate that. In particular, they appreciate the role that South Africa has played and the people of South Africa. They feel that you made their struggle visible and that you understand the plight of the Palestinian people. We must continue. We have no reason to despair. We are free. We have the freedom to help, to win justice.
Yeah.
And so I believe that our organizations must continue. We must build those alliances I've referred to. The work is not done, so a luta continua.
Do you know, or do you believe the ceasefire could lead to long-term peace, or is it the risk of renewed conflict still high?
Well, Netanyahu has been threatening that he wants to erase Gaza from the sight of the earth, and he's tried to say that this erasure refers to Hamas. But we know all Palestinians are in danger. I think we should not relax. We must continue to be on our guard. And all the activities that have been started, the protests, the petitions, the flotilla, all of it has to continue. Because in total, I think this joint action will lead to the outcome we all desire. So I don't think the peace plan is the kind of final stage. Of course, we want the killing to stop. And so the ceasefire is important. And wherever we have the opportunity, we must call for a genuine ceasefire. So every step that has a reduction or removal of onslaught of killing, that we must insist upon. But the real battle is to secure freedom.
Do you know, since you're talking about trust, what is one step both sides could agree on right now to build that trust?
Well, first they must say that Palestinian people have the right to craft their own peace plan, which must then be considered by the global community. I think what is worrying for me is that these plans are being imposed on Palestinian people, and you don't see the Palestinian leadership articulating a Palestinian vision. I think we need to see that in very clear terms, and we must insist that a space is created for that vision to be set out.
Dr. Naledi Pandor, I will not keep you any longer, but once again from Radio Al-Ansar, News in Focus, by the host, Brother Yunus Saccoor, our comrade, the President of United for Palestine, Brother Abdul Valodia, and everyone in studio. We're really grateful and humbled by you taking the time, trying to link up with us with all the network connections to, just engage and give hope and to motivate us to continue the struggle, as you said it. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and may the Almighty continue to give you the strength to continue doing what you do at the best.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah for inviting me. It's my first time on Al-Ansar, and I thank you for having this direct attention to the Palestinian cause.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, so that was Dr. Naledi Pandor, just to have her in studio, linking up with her in her day, which is so busy. As we've heard, while the ceasefire offers a pause from the fighting, the reality on the ground remains fragile. Families still facing uncertainty, and trust between sides is hard to build. We hope that conversations like this reminds us of human stories behind the headlines, that peace is not just a plan, but the daily safety and dignity of millions of people.
Shukran, Sumaya, for a remarkable interview with Dr. Naledi Pandor. I think you covered many pertinent questions, and she gave some brilliant answers. On that note, we'll take a break for the news, and we will continue our discussions after the news break.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Breaking news, dates are 29th of October. The news from Durban, 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM. A lawyer is fined for clocking 220 kilometers per hour in KwaZulu-Natal, America Molina. An Eastern Cape lawyer who was caught speeding on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast has been fined 40,000 rands. The Road Traffic Inspectorate arrested Mondi Nzima in August after he clocked over 220 kilometers per hour in a 120 kilometers per hour zone while driving his car on the N2. KwaZulu-Natal Transport Interface in Lesbia says a 32-year-old Umtata resident failed to stop when officers tried to flag him down. Transport Inspectorate pursued him and caught him at Park Rainey. SBA says Nzima pleaded guilty to the reckless and negligent driving charges in the Scottsboro Magistrate Court this week. Morning's Minister of Public Works Dean Mkhwanazi has unveiled a construction action plan. He says it is aimed at addressing the root causes of underperformance. Mkhwanazi believes the South African construction action plan will also put systems in place to restore delivery. He warned contractors, consultants, or officials who fail to deliver on projects, saying they will be held accountable. The plan announced today comes after a special meeting of ministers and MECs to tackle infrastructure backlogs, delays, and poor project delivery, which authorities say have hindered economic growth and service delivery. Mkhwanazi says he understands the frustration of South Africans over slow and incomplete government projects. However, he commends pockets of excellence across the country, including KwaZulu-Natal, whose strong project delivery is now a national model. That's according to Mkhwanazi. In other stories now, President Ramaphosa and his delegates visit Switzerland today. The visit is to establish bilateral engagements, amongst other things. President Ramaphosa had this to say.
South Africa remembers the Swiss citizens, an organization that stood with us during our darkest hours under apartheid. This solidarity planted the seeds of friendship and cooperation between our two peoples. South Africa and Switzerland are nations that believe in a just and peaceful world order. We believe in the founding principles of the United Nations Charter. We support joint solutions to common problems. We value multilateralism and the fair and consistent application of international law. We believe that peace is not merely the silence after the guns have stopped. Peace is about justice and development.
More news, the head of the Hawks Tactical Operations Unit, Brigadier Lesiba Mokoena, has confirmed that he dispatched Hawks officers to verify the legitimacy of a police operation at the home of alleged criminal Katsiso Katie Molefe. Testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria on Wednesday, Mokoena claimed he was instructed by Senior to confirm whether the raid and the arrest of Molefe in December last year were legitimate. The Political Killings Task Team had raided Molefe's home to arrest him in connection with the murder of a Firenia King engineer Ahmed Swart. One of the Hawks officers who went to verify the police operation in Molefe's house was Captain Barry Kruger. He reconstructs the event.
And Captain, I'm asking these questions not to make you feel uncomfortable or not to suggest anything untoward. But we need to understand, because one of the allegations made against the Hawks is that they were interfering with a lawful police operation, and they were possibly doing so for the benefit of criminal syndicates. So it's important that we ask these questions.
No, 100%. Yes, Commissioner, I understand. It is a difficult situation to be in at the moment. That split second or two that you must sum up, is this legit, or are they people going to attack us? It is difficult, but you got to use your years of experience that you built up and your trust that you have. As I got closer to the group, I did introduce myself, and I could see the body language drop a little bit. There was a bit of a feeling of uncertainty between them and us.
And finally, international story. United States President Donald Trump insists that the Washington brokered ceasefire in Gaza is holding despite Israeli forces killing more than 100 Palestinians, including 46 children. Report says in about 12 hours from yesterday to today, Israeli attacks on Gaza killed at least 104 Palestinians and injured 253 others. One of the latest attacks hit a tent housing displaced people in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. The U.S. President Trump defended Israel's actions earlier today, citing reports that a 37-year-old Israeli soldier had been killed in southern Gaza. A brief statement from the Israeli military did not specify when the soldier was killed, but said his family had been notified before the information was released. In your weather, it's 22 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. An Eastern Cape lawyer who was caught speeding on KwaZulu-Natal South Coast has been fined 40,000 rand. A report says he was caught after he clocked over 220 kilometers per hour in a 120 kilometers per hour zone. That's the news.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب.
I won't start.
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes.
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service.
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
One child, one dream.
A journey with Africa Muslims Agency that began 3 years ago has changed the lives of Syrian and Palestinian refugee children beyond their dreams. Help them to continue their education by sponsoring a student at the Amman School of Excellence in Lebanon for 25,200 Rand per year. Education at Amman can provide a brighter future for refugee families.
AMA, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Welcome to the Village Code Cafe and Bistro, where flavors dance and every gathering feels like magic. Halal certified and run by 3 sisters, we serve breakfast all day, from bagels and sourdough open sandwiches to burgers, wraps, toasties, tacos, nachos, and our signature coffee blend, crafted just for our cafe. Host your next event with us, all in a space that feels as good as it tastes. Find us at the Westville Village Market, 123 Jan Hofmeyer Road, lower ground level. Call us on 079 670 4093. The Village Co, where every bite feels like home.
At Radio Al Ansar, we value your feedback. If you have a broadcasting related complaint, please send it in writing to the head of the Complaints Committee. Be sure to include your full name, contact details, a clear explanation of the complaint, and any supporting documents. You can email your complaint to feedback@alansar.org.za, that's feedback@alansar.org.za, or visit our administrative office at 207 West Road, Overport, Durban. Your voice matters to us.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al Ansar.
Allah, 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 तन्हा हूँ मैं और इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير معیوب ہوں تیرا کرم پردہ رکھا عزت بھی دی بڑھ کے دیا اوقات سے دولت بھی طاقت بھی اور وقت بھی کر دے خطا ہر معاف تو فہرست اسیاں کو چھوڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس کہ یہی کر دوں تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لب پہ رہے ذکر و دعا اور تجھ سے میں ڈرتا رہوں کر کے عمل قرآن پہ جنت کی راہوں پہ چلتا رہوں خدمت کروں اسلام کی پچھتاوے کا غم توڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير روتا رہا سجدوں میں جو دل میں لیے امت کا غم پڑھتا رہوں میں تو فتن اپنے نبی پہ درود ہر قدم ہو روح جب تن سے جدا جنت کی جانب چلے دوڑ کر اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير الله
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pienberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. The name is Yunus Saccoor and co-hosted by Sumaya Khan. Before the break, we had quite an interesting 1 hour where we did a quick analysis of the Palestinian peace plan. We interviewed Brother Mustafa Darsot. He gave an insight into the situation, and Dr. Naledi Pandor responded, quite appropriately to the various interesting questions raised by Sister Sumaya Khan. We will continue with the discussion later on in the program. But what I want to do is I want to welcome some guests that have joined us live in the studio. First of all, Councillor Ernest Smith. He's a councillor from Ward 27, a civic activist and a very determined individual to improve service delivery, not only in Ethekwini, but throughout the country. Ernest, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me. It's been long lost since I've been here. I thought you guys almost forgot about me.
No, you were so busy in council with lots of initiatives, and the one that's interesting that I want our listeners to listen to, because many of them are facing hardship in executing their outstanding electricity, water charges, and also rates. And many of them are in distress. You recall, sometime last year, there was a debt relief program, and many of them missed the cut, including ourselves here, because there's a 50% discount.
Sure.
And many of them did not know about it, did not know about the process. So what I want you to do is just give us an update on the extension of this debt relief program and exactly what it entails, so that our listeners know that, there's a free buck coming their way. It could be many thousands of bucks. So please explain them how they can quickly, qualify for the write-off. And I know many of them may not have the down payment, but I think there are certain reliefs for that as well.
Sure. I think it's important to start off on the note that obviously this is a continuation of the last debt relief period we had. However, obviously the municipality didn't notify everybody when it happened initially. When I say didn't notify, the period was supposed to be 3 months, but it was actually in the region of about 45 days where it actually ended up being executed and implemented. And obviously that's created a backlog because some residents are still saying we still haven't processed it. The bills are still showing the interest and whatever. So this period will obviously start on the 1st of November, and the forms will be available, from what I've been told, from the 3rd of November, in order to obviously allow residents to go to their local CLLR centres and make their arrangements accordingly. And it must be obviously the property owner. They must bring their ID, their bills, and then be able to speak to the person, the official there, and be able to make those arrangements. So essentially what it compromises out of is that this round, obviously, if prior to January 2025, that you can pay the 50% and then obviously get the 50% written off. So you obviously have to come with that money. Following that, there is a bit of an interest issue, obviously, because from January to July, there is that period where there will be a little bit of an arrangement made on top of that. But definitely the period is extended to everybody who are finding themselves in financial distress. And obviously with this period, it starts 1st of November and ends in January 26 or 2026. So obviously we need to encourage as many people who are finding themselves in the economic situation where they're battling to pay their rates and taxes. A lot of people, I know 2 months ago I had a resident come through to me who's got probably 150, 200,000 Rand in rates and taxes, water and lights, or collective thereof, and they're just battling, and they've tried to make headway with the municipality, reporting the issues diligently, but the municipality hadn't responded timeously to them. So in situations like that, obviously we need to encourage as many people to go out and actually apply for it. And it's specifically for all of the people who are finding themselves in a distressed position, because we don't want people to feel that there's no option out and having to sell and the rest, because that obviously impacts whether your rates clearance certificates and the rest of it, if you've got outstanding rates and taxes that still need to be paid.
Ernest, the problem people face, and from somebody who has been involved many years ago with this process, I find it strange that they're sticking to 31st January 25 areas up to date. A lot of people 10 months later have done some kind of settlement. Now, we don't know whether they would go back and check what the areas were then and write off 50%, because if they look at it now, you may have executed most of the areas and maybe your areas have developed from June to October. How does it work?
Well, essentially, that's the discussion they need to have there with the officials as well, because as I said, there will be, according to the municipality, there'll obviously be some sort of additional tariff that they'll have to pay. When I say tariff, I'm not talking about some random fee, because I'm talking about the interest that's been accrued, and that discussion will have to be had with on a one-on-one basis with the official, because you don't want a situation arising, and this is where I find a lot of residents coming through and saying, we've gone through, we've applied, but the 50% has been taken off, but not the 50% that the municipality said it would take off. And I think that's where, obviously, all of these things are going to be tabled in full council tomorrow and the rest of it. But that's where I think residents need to be specifically attuned to saying, listen, we want a copy of our agreement with you to say what exactly is it that we're agreeing to. And residents must ask as many questions while they are there, because some situations may allow 50% write-off. Some situations, if there's a historical issue of payment, that will have to be determined by the official as well. So an arrangement can be met, but there will be different amounts that will be due. So I think it's important for residents to go and sit down and have the discussion as well. So when it comes to the amount specifically you're talking about, I think it's imperative that the residents also be able to find the 50%. I know some people are saying, oh, well, if I owe 100,000, where must I pull 50,000 rand from? We haven't got it in savings. We haven't got it in this. We've used it on lawyers' fees to fight the municipality. That is one thing. And I'm going to just tie this in quickly to something else, is that when residents experience issues with like a broken meter or a burst water meter and the like, they must ensure they report it to the municipality, because there is a historical argument when we fight the municipality. Let's say that this period wasn't in effect and you still owed you 100,000. When did the issue start? There have been cases where residents reported it timeously and the municipality said, no, you must pay. The issue was on the side of the municipality, and they could show in writing that they had raised it with the municipality to prevent the water loss and thus the air flowing through the meter, thus spiraling out of control. And residents need to be attuned to that, because I'm finding a lot of people still don't know that you can use your e-services portal to submit your readings by yourself, both water, electricity, or the mobile app. Some residents are saying we just send it in, but they never kept it on the bill. And when you ask them, how did you send it in? They're saying, well, we're not sure. So residents need to actually make sure that from their end, they cover all of their bases. So when you come to someone like myself and say, I've got this problem, and I'll use a specific case. We had a block of flats that owed almost R1 million because of the 6 kiloliter surcharge issue. The charge issue that the municipality backdated. And they were saying, how do we rectify this? And saying, is there correspondence? Yes. And they could produce pages and pages. And it allows us to streamline the argument. Eventually, some of these cases, the municipality accepts that it messed up, and they said, okay, you owe nothing because of these steps that were taken. But yeah, that's just a summary of what I would like to say to everyone, because those where I'm finding people, if they don't report it, that's where the issue comes unstuck for a lot of people.
Now, are all the councillors au fait with the process, so that when residents meet with the ward councillor or PR councillor or ratepayer associations, that they acquire adequate information on the right of procedure? Because as a lay person, if they tell you areas as of 31st January 2025 will be written off 50%, and I recall there was mentioned that if you cannot pay the balance of 50%, you can sign an AOD over a period of time. So it gives them somewhat relief. But those that didn't respond then have got an opportunity to respond before 31st January 2026. But for them to go back to 31st January and see what they owed, because subsequent payments could have wiped off those areas, unless the municipality can say, I can check what you owe us then, and we will write it off even now. So the clarity is required on that. Clarity is required on the balance of the 50%.
Sure.
And the methodology. So are councillors equipped to assist, or do we need somebody from the Treasury Department to come and talk about it? I doubt very much whether those guys know much about this whole process. The fact that they didn't expect that or extend that date from 31st January to say 30th October or 30th September or whatever, closer to the time.
Yeah.
Are they giving any consideration to those issues, educating the public? Because we don't want a situation where councillors are not so aware of it.
Yeah.
Officials are aware, but they're not so clear about it. Because when you submit a report to council, it must be clear and indicate exactly. I know when we were looking at cut-off days, we were looking at extending debt write-offs, we were looking at other issues. We used to extend the date closer to the date of the council resolution. So why is it they sticking to 31st January?
I don't want to presume to speak on behalf of the municipality and the logic that's employed, but to answer your question, do all councillors know? But should I say
they should know? They should know.
They should, but I can't. Like I said, I can't speak for all councillors.
Because I want to bring in Abdul Valodia. He's the chair of ORA, and he's got some 1,500 residents that are raising these issues. And I'm not sure whether Abdul's got clarity, but if it's clear as mud, he's going to have to tell us. So we're going to have to get you to get it back to council and treasury and tell those fellows, catch a wake-up call, because something is not clear. Then the officials won't know what's happening. Abdul, I want to bring you in to help Ernest along, because Ernest obviously has been attending meetings, and the way municipalities are run, sometimes the parties that are the opposition don't have much chance to contribute. So, Abdul, is there any clarity you can provide, or you as doubtful as Ernest on the matter?
I think we're both in the same page, because from municipality, what we gather is that there's always different agendas and different changes. The council itself, as Ernest rightfully says, a lot of people don't know what's happening there. Today they make one statement, tomorrow it's something else. And, we've been to many centers where we went and helped people to go and fill up these forms. And majority of them didn't know what they were doing there, while making, while...
The people doesn't know, and the officials.
Yes, while actually coming...
So how can they capture if they don't know what's happening?
And you know what, subsequent to that, in fact, I want Ernest also to just clarify regarding the deceased estates. Is that still in place? Is that still happening? That's gone very quiet now, because
so a write-off the debt for the deceased estate.
Yes, there was a write-off there, right? And I know that was ongoing, and we haven't received any notice about it. It has been cancelled. But maybe Ernest can just clarify if that has been cancelled, or is it still in place? Because I think people need to take advantage of that. Likewise, like this 50%, many people really don't know about it, even up to now. And, I must thank Al Ansar for actually bringing this up and helping the community to actually, where we can get the message out to people to say, go and take advantage of this. Because I've met many people that went out to the municipalities themselves, and, rightfully, the way Ernest says, that people had huge bills. Because I myself, personally, I knew a person had a bill of 600,000 rands. And he came back and said, hey, you know what, really, thank you, man. And he went for the last day. And he managed to bring his bill down to 300,000 Ernest. And he was happy to get it done, because he had a 300,000 write-off. So these opportunities that comes up, and I think residents must not just play it, to say, let's wait and play this waiting game. They all need to take this up, whether it's water, electricity, rates and taxes, be it whatever charges were there. Take it up. It's an opportunity. Go and get this bill written off, and let's see from there. But Ernest, regarding that,
Ernest, the deceased estate, the write-off, you don't have an update on that.
No, not offhand. I'd have to go back, because that's not the committee I sit on specifically. But I can try and find it out and obviously revert back, which is not a problem. I'm actually trying to find it at the moment, just to see if I can pick up something on it. Because remember, we go through a lot of documentation. And I recall from today's meeting we had. There was something, but again, when you're dealing with 50 items, you can't recall every single thing. But specifically with the deceased estates, I do know that in specific cases they do look at it and say, well, if there's no heir or person to borrow on, then there has to be some provision that's actually made, because otherwise you can't have like, for example, all of these problematic buildings, problem buildings that we have, a lot of them belong to those types of things. And I think my particular case is the municipality is actually addressing those things in terms of the bad buildings bylaw as well. Because if you have a deceased estate where there is no apparent heir or successor to the property, then the state obviously has to become some sort of the beneficiary to it. So then that would allow them to actually have some control over these problematic buildings. But in some cases, and that actually reminds me, please, I appeal to all of the residents, please make sure that when you pass away one day, and I don't like to be morbid about things, but that there is some sort of communication left to say what happens in various instances. Because a lot of the situations arise that we have where families move abroad, they're not interested in a property in South Africa, and therefore they just lost it like that. And then the problem there is that it becomes a problem for the surrounding communities. I mean, I don't know how many blocks of flats you have complaining to you about people busy utilizing, breaking in, then it becomes a drug haven, and then the crime escalates because now you've got a drug hotspot, and there's, you know, all of the nefarious activities happening, all because somebody overseas didn't care what happens to their mother or dad's property or whatever.
100%.
You
know, also, Yunus, I must actually forgot, before we started, is to, talk about the Hatti Road, the fantastic job that Ernest helped us as
the resurfacing of the road.
Yes, that was a fantastic thing that,
there's no more potholes there.
There's no more potholes. The road is, fabulous. In fact, I think we saw comments, people saying that the road was so smooth that they didn't feel a bump on it. Right? So really well done, Ernest. And I must
listen,
say,
Ernest, I'm going to leave you with some homework. We'll chat with you later on in the program. Is number one, it applies only to homeowners. A lot of people are tenants and they're in areas. We need to clarify that part. We also need to check how this 31st January 2025 works out, because if they have records of the debt as of that date, notwithstanding the fact that payments have been made subsequently, that they can say, right, we're going to write off 50% of the debt during that period. It's about 9 months ago, and I don't think those officials can do that. They may not be competent. And number three, the actual process. We're going to get some councillors and some officials on a special program to deal with that issue, because it affects, like Abdul said, 300,000 in one case, 10,000 in another case, 20,000, 50,000. Everybody in some way or the other are in areas. And we as a humanitarian organization, we are helping a lot of these people with settlement of their areas. So it's important that our residents know about it. But I just want to switch back to the Palestinian issue. And when Naledi Pandor was chatting, she spoke about, she was hosting, Albanese, and basically mentioning that it might appear the boycotting of products may be something insignificant. And, there is a call for boycotting Coke, boycotting Clover, boycotting Israeli products, boycotting certain products that Discam are selling. And when this correspondence went to the CEO of Discam, he had the audacity of responding and saying that if that is the case, you boycott all products, you won't be able to go into a hospital and have drips, because he says those drips are manufactured in Israel. So the list goes on. But a big company like Coca-Cola, if you boycott their product, they'll feel the impact like Clover, and you'll find the prices dropping, the shelves are getting full without the commodities being sold. So I'm going to play a clip which talks about the boycott of products, whereafter Sumaya will have a further discussion with Mustafa Darsot, who gets involved with these particular issues regularly on Saturday, because a little bit makes an impact. And let's catch a listen.
It's not the job of one person alone and not one people alone. This is why there is a need to strong support from within, and there is a need for a for justice is, as I was saying yesterday, is not the job of one person alone and not one people alone. This is why there is a need to strong support from within, and there is a need for alliance. And this is the other thing. I don't agree that South Africa has not done enough because as a government, because it has tried and it is trying to mobilize allies. But look, eventually we need to understand that governments are not in control of countries. This is the reality. Multinationals are. And let me ask you a question. Are you still drinking Coke? Are you still using Airbnb? No, we need to be serious. Wherever I go, there is Coca-Cola in this country. So stop drinking Coca-Cola first and then blame the government.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good clip from Francesca. And, obviously you have to ensure that you start somewhere to hurt, the Zionist Israel. Unfortunately, they controlling the economy of the world in ensuring that they buy off various factories like Clover when it was owned by some other shareholders. They came here, took over. There were attempts to boycott Clover, but other brands where they were our people still continue. Sumaya, I want you to just comment on that briefly, and perhaps Mustafa can respond that how the sacrifices we make can have the impact as alluded to by Naledi Pandor.
That's a difficult one because let's be honest, all of us talk about it, but how many of us really, really try? We do it, we fall off the bandwagon at times. So what would be the approach? Can you tell our South African brothers and sisters?
Look, I'm of the view you can't boycott a whole lot of brands across the spectrum. For the simple reason is that you want to maintain sustainability. And when it's sustainable and targeted, then of course you'll see good outcomes. Now, here in South Africa, in our South African context, we just have to take 5 brands. I mean, that's what my approach would be. My approach is Coca-Cola, Clover, Dis-Chem, Cape Union Mart, and Nestle. Right? Now, already you've seen that, like Nestle announced last week, slashing 16,000 jobs. Boycotts have affected it. You take other brands like Starbucks. Starbucks has been having problems from last year, right? You go in the Middle East, okay, not so much Gulf states, but take other countries like Jordan and all those places where the citizens forget what the ruling class is doing, right? But citizens boycott. You'll find that KFC stores, McDonald's, Starbucks, nobody visits them. Right? Malaysia, same story. And yet the master license holders in these countries are Muslim and franchise store owners. Even in Turkey, they've had a problem. So if you have targeted, as I said, it's up to every individual what brands they want to do. But these 5 should be like the starting point, the guiding point.
And when you think about it, they are like the 5 big points. I mean, you mentioned McDonald's and KFC. That's in every corner. If we're right from the studio, if you look at it, that's the quickest food. When you think about it, I mean, that's a reality.
Yeah, that is a reality. But I mean, the thing is that we have to sustain. So if one has to, what Francesca Albanese said in this clip, and she's been our guest here in South Africa for the past week, and she's telling us to us, why is it wherever I go in South Africa, I see Coke? That should be, a wake-up call, because at the end of the day, it's a sacrifice. It's a small sacrifice we have to make. And if you want us to listen to what she says, that what the Palestinian people are sacrificing, for the rest of the world, we should make that small sacrifice to make sure that their sacrifice continues. Or should we say that justice is served for their sacrifices?
There you are. We have to start somewhere, Sumaya and Mustafa. And let them feel the impact. Why people are addicted to Coke, I'm not sure why. And I think Mustafa suggested that we must start off in the Durban Summer Souk in December, and we're going to have to chat with our board and ensure we tried the initiative, and somehow the other people sneaked Coke and other products in. But we're going to have to do that. And also in our weddings, some people, they're just adamant they want Coke, otherwise they don't have cold drinks. Now, Hassan, there's a huge financial impact that these types of boycotts can have, because you discussed it many times before that we must not regard this kind of a boycott on a product like Coke as something insignificant, because, Coke's turnover goes into billions worldwide. So perhaps you want to come in from a financial angle. If Israel's pockets are hurt with these boycotts, certainly like what happened in South Africa, sport was boycotted and various other things took place, it did have a change. And slowly but surely it will have a further impact. Hassan, your comments?
If you look at South Africa during the apartheid years, the major reason that the National Party and the government at that time moved on to basically engage with the likes of the ANC was because of sanctions. It was obviously there was resistance and there was other issues, but one of the biggest issues was the impact of sanctions that it had on the economy and on South Africa. It had a massive impact. Sanctions across the board, not necessarily just your financial sanctions, but cultural sanctions, sporting sanctions across the board. Sanctions do have a meaningful impact if implemented effectively. South Africa saw that, and it forced the South African government to change because, firstly, the currency was under pressure. Came under huge pressure. That's why South Africa had two currencies. They had the financial currency and they had the commercial currency during that time when we were trading during the apartheid years. Secondly, there was huge disinvestment that had taken place because multinationals had started to move out. Some of the big ones still stayed, but many multinationals had moved out. With the result, disinvestment impacted the country, impacted economically the country. The same issue can happen with Israel. What Mustafa highlighted is very clear. There are some core brands with direct links to Israel. Coca-Cola is obviously a big brand and it has big support in terms of Israel. McDonald's, similarly, from the multinationals, those two are huge in terms of their presence and their support for that country. But the likes of Clover and Dis-Chem, Clover is run by Israelis. It's owned by an Israeli company. So the profits or whatever are repatriated and going directly to Israelis in Israel. So that is a direct boycott which we must try and implement as best as possible. And Dis-Chem, their founder, has been awarded many awards over the years by the Israelis for his strong support and being a friend of Israel over the years. And he's a very outspoken, supporter of Israel. And, we've seen it in many, many instances. So again, there are core areas where you can focus on. It has an impact. We've seen it. Firstly, it impacts two ways companies. It impacts them firstly financially, where they loss of profits, and with the result they're having to cut costs and cut jobs. But secondly, it impacts shareholders and the founders and directors in particular because share prices decline. If you look at Starbucks, if you look at McDonald's, and many of these companies, Nestle and the like, their share prices have also come under pressure. With the result, the actual wealth and value of many of those big shareholders and the like have faced a lot of pressure because of the impact of some of these boycotts is hampered. So there is a financial impact. And second, lastly, do we look at Israel itself? Israel itself, if the US had just have to remove its support in terms of the amount of financial support and the armaments that they're providing, Israel will be in huge financial distress because they would to continue at the level and the pace that they've been doing over the last 2 years in terms of the bombardment and the like, they would not be able to sustain it without some of this. And the US, obviously, because they're just printing money and here their debt levels are continuing, they effectively, who would have thought that, a country that's basically got a huge amount of homeless people and issues, but they're happy to support another nation wholeheartedly by giving them billions and billions of dollars to support them. And that is one of the biggest issues. The big issue is that if that support from the likes of the US is removed, it has a big impact. Look at Turkey. Turkey was continuing to still trade with Israel for a period of time. They've now stopped for a period. Guess what happened? One of the companies in Israel that trades with Turkey in terms of steel, if I remember, I'm just check up on his scrap steel and the like, has gone bankrupt because one of the big trading partners was in Turkey. It has a massive impact. And if countries and corporations across the globe implement and stop trading with Israel, we unfortunately, while the government is pushing it and many of the consumers are trying, many of our corporates are still trading. When it's Glencore, big amounts of coal and the like is still being supplied to the likes of Israel. We must stop that. So corporates as well, play a huge part. What Francesca said, she said very clearly, governments don't control, multinationals do. And it's important that corporates implement boycotts and do not trade with the likes of Israel. That has a massive impact. And if it's followed through by many corporates and companies across the globe, Israel will turn over very quickly, and you'll see they will not be the arrogant and aggressive the way they are, and they'll become a lot more humble and start negotiating in good faith, which they haven't done to date.
Now, in terms of the financial indicators, I see the rand is doing fairly well. The last I seen it was 17.15 or whatever the amount was. The All-Share Index in the JSE, which is an indicator from a financial angle, is doing also very well. President Ramaphosa went to the Far East and he did some trade deals, etc. There's a lot of sort of investment into South Africa, particularly in the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. So there seems to be, from a financial angle, positive sentiment, on South Africa. Perhaps you just want to comment on that.
I think South Africa is we're seeing some reasonable improvement coming through over the past few months. Obviously, there's still some big challenges, and I'll touch on that. But on the improvement side, inflation has been stable, around 3.4% in the last count. And the Reserve Bank governor obviously is targeting lower. That 3% is his level, and he's having a bit of a tussle with the finance minister. But we'll see next week. If I remember, either next week, I think that the finance minister will deliver his midterm budget. Or is it either next week or the week after? But he'll deliver the midterm budget. We'll see whether he touches on the inflation side. But very importantly, there has been some economic growth coming through. Very importantly as well, we've seen significant investment coming through in certain parts of the country. Where here we are in KZN, there's been an uptick in terms of property investment. We've seen it along the North Coast in particular, whether it's the Salter development. You've seen in Tinley Manor, the 1.52 billion rand Club Med that is being developed, which will be opened up in June, July next year. That will be a huge impact in terms of bringing foreign tourism and foreign tourists into our province. We've always had the Cape Town and Western Cape has been the sort of the key focus in terms of foreigners. Hopefully, the likes of a Club Med will attract foreigners coming into KZN. But we also need to play our part in terms of the municipality and the provincial government as well. We need to ensure our beaches are clean and they're safe. We need to ensure that when people are walking on the promenade or they're walking in, Amshlanga or wherever it is on the South Coast or North Coast, that there is visible police presence and that there is safety, so that especially during the December and January period, which is going to be potentially a boom period for this province and the city, we need to ensure that there's no major issues such as beaches being closed or major crime and those issues. Those need to be addressed, and there is definitely opportunity for our province, our city, our province, and the country to see an uptick. Now, one of the key negatives or challenges we face is still from the tariffs. We still haven't got a deal. And you've seen in this past week, Donald Trump's been flying around to Asia. He's now signed a deal with Japan. He signed a deal with South Korea. He's currently signing deals where those tariffs are being reduced for the likes of Korea, Vietnam, and Japan to around 15% or so. We're sitting at 30%. It's a big impact. But we're not sitting idly. In the last month, we've seen that we are increasing our exports and diversifying it away to countries such as China and also the likes of the Middle East. China now, we will over the next 5 years supply them with stone fruit. This is the first time. So the likes of peaches, plums, those type of fruit will be exported to China over the next 5 years. Very important because it's helping us. And then secondly, citrus is, again, slowly we'll see some diversification. If that 30% remains, we need to ensure that we find more partners, trade with the likes of China, the BRICS countries, and the Middle East, so that we can reduce our reliance on those that are imposing harsh conditions and terms to trade with us. It takes time, But unfortunately, in the next 6 months or to a year, especially the motor sector and the agricultural sector may face a bit of challenges and impact, particularly the Eastern Cape. I think they could face still a tough period if those 30% tariffs remain as well.
Okay, we got about 20 minutes left. I want to take a short break just to catch our breath. We said a lot. After that, we'll conclude this program.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust. Meat made better.
For years, families across KZN have trusted the Culinarium from Ladysmith to Pietermaritzburg and Newcastle for quality kitchenware and appliances that make every meal special. And now, the Culinarium is coming to Durban. Yes, you can soon visit our brand new store at Musgrave Centre, bringing the same trusted quality, friendly service, and incredible opening specials you already love. Discover premium cookware, appliances, bakeware, and all your kitchen essentials now right here at Musgrave Centre, the Culinarium, where family, flavour and quality come together. Visit us in-store or online at theculinarium.co.za.
At Checkstar, get 5 Roses original tea bags, hundreds for R49.99, or Parmalat fruit yogurt 1 kg. Take 2 for R60. Offers valid until 9th November 2025. Only at Checkstar, Mount Edgecombe, Durban CBD, and Sparks Road branches. T's and C's apply.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Phir ke gali गली तबाह ठोकर सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों सोते हैं उनके साए में सोते हैं उनके साए में कोई हमें जगाए क्यों फिर के दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों यादें हुजूर की कसम गफलत ऐश है सितम यादें हुजूर की कसम गफलत ऐश है सितम खूब है कैद गम में हम खूब है कैद गम में हम कोई हमें छुड़ाए क्यों वो जो न थे तो कुछ न था, वो जो न हो तो कुछ न हो, वो जो न थे तो कुछ न था, वो जो न हो तो कुछ न हो, जान है वो।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the final session of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marsberg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming at www.alansar.org.za. Before the break, we had some interesting discussions on the different subjects for this evening, including Palestine, the way forward, will Israel hold the ceasefire, analysis, the Gaza peace plan, update on service delivery issues in Ethekwini. We couldn't chat on the update on Mkhwanazi inquest. We'll continue with that discussion next week. We'll have Brother Imran Subrathie with us. And Hassan gave us some very important information on the global financial indicators. Now we need to wrap up. And firstly, on the Palestinian issue, I'd like to bring back Sister Sumaya Khan. Sumaya?
As we heard, the Gaza peace plan offers hope to end the fighting and rebuild lives, but the challenges still remain. Brother Mustafa, can you round up our conversation this evening concerning Gaza, Palestine?
Well, Sister Sumaya, what we have to say is that to understand the ceasefire, as what we've discussed, and even with Sister Naledi Pandor, is that it has to be meaningful, it has to be genuine, and it has to be respected. It can't be heavily weighted against one side. And of course, we can see what Israel is doing. So, as what we alluded to early on, is that this is a pause in its current form, and looking at the way Israel treats it as just by the way matter. So that will carry on. Now, one has to understand quickly as to why this ceasefire was hurriedly embraced by Muslim leaders and other global leaders. One has to go back 25 years to another Muslim country that was under occupation and was fighting a war. And to understand that country and where it is today from what it was, then you can understand what they're trying to make Gaza, using Gaza and, of course, the Palestinian cause. The whole idea is to get the Palestinians to abandon their militancy, which is their right to freedom. They are freedom fighters. They have every right to militancy, because they are resisting occupation. However, what you see in this is that, okay, they say we're gonna keep the people of Gaza there, we're gonna rebuild Gaza, but then it begs the question: why take Gaza to that level of destruction? And a terrible level of destruction to rebuild it. So when I say 25 years ago, now you have to look at a country like Chechnya. 30 years ago, Chechnya had a war with Russia. 100,000 people were killed. Right? Go to August 1999, the second Chechnya war started. This war, in the first 6 months, was hectic to the first 2 years, but it was over a period of 10 years, but then it also affected the Northern Caucasus and Georgia. What happened with Chechnya was that Ahmed Kadyrov, who is the current president of Chechnya's father, he's late now. The current president is Ramzan Kadyrov. Now, what happened was Ahmed Kadyrov was the fiery warlord that stood there as the Mujahideen leader in the Chechnya war. Came the second Chechnya war, which started in August 1999. Within 6 months, he was neutralized. How so? He swapped sides from being the Mujahideen to that of the Russians. Today, Chechnya is a client state of Russia. It's got semi-autonomy. It's got people can practice the Islam, but there's one thing that people cannot go to: is there's no militancy. There's no freedom of speech, right? So people are always living in this police state under fear. And that's what they're trying to do here to Palestine. We already seen it in the West Bank. You take the security forces of the West Bank and how they operate. Palestinian security forces, they are not there to guard the Palestinians. They are there to guard the settlers and safeguard Israel's interests, doing Israel's dirty work. So that's what they're trying to do. That's why they keep on seeing Hamas must demilitarize. Hamas must give up its arms and weapons. So what they're trying to do is pacify Gaza into submission. That's what it is. So we cannot abandon the cause. We cannot give up the cause. And this cause is far from over. This ceasefire, as what Francesca Albanese said, Israel's attitude is, you cease, I fire. And that's what's happening. And the boycotts must continue. And you must know that at the end of the day, we cannot allow this into the world, and citizenry, etc., and people around the world cannot allow this to happen, because if this plan of Trump's is successful, then you can see the domino effect happening to other parts of the world.
Shukran, Mustafa, for providing that clarification. Ernest, I want to bring you in. Your mayor, he's attending a whole lot of different workshops, indicated that he has a turnaround strategy for the Economist municipality. And we know that seeing improvement in service delivery, we have to call a spade a spade. The verges are being cut. The potholes are being attended to. As Brother Abdul says, he's biased in his ward, 31. That Hartley Road and a couple of other roads are being, resurfaced. But what they're doing is they're putting in these huge speed humps. And that is causing, a little bit of discomfort for people who are driving vehicles. But from your point of view, being a councillor, do you really see commitment to improve service delivery in Ethekwini? I know Msinduzi are not stopping complaining. The roads are bad out there. They're questioning why they have to pay rates, etc. And they're worried that the municipality is under administration. Ethekwini is Section 154. Mike Sutcliffe is gone that side. This side, you got your city manager. And is the mayor, Cyril Kaba, really making things happy and improving Ethekwini?
You really threw me in the deep end with a rock, eh? The short answer to that would be it varies. There are instances where the municipality is making progress. I'm not going to dispute that. But the measure, the residents' measure of
what they're telling us is there's minimal water outages, there's no load shedding, and there are talks about that coming back. We are tending to your potholes, we are tending to your verges, we are tending to your blockages. So you're alluding to that, but broadly speaking, infrastructure upgrade, etc. And I know we're watching this space very carefully because elections are around the corner and ratepayer associations are being proactive.
Yeah.
So on the one side, there is improvement, but on the other side, there's a lot still to be done. So how are we going to balance this process?
Well, at the end of the day, it's effective accountability. It's the whole thing about you spoke about citizenry just now, and the reality is if you pay for services, you have the right to query where those services are and why they aren't as effective as what they are. And I think that's what started spurring people on in the last, call it 5 years, 5-6 years, to say, hold on, we've been messed around enough. Our money has been wasted and squandered and stolen and whatever the case is with people and contracts. But I still want to get to this one. But the reality is there are some things that are working. But is it enough? And is it a ploy to convince the residents to vote a specific way in the up and coming elections or not? It's dependent. Because at the end of the day, what people must remember is that the same money pays the politicians' salaries. And some politicians are very scared to lose it. And that's why when the election happens, people have to make sure that they balance power across the board. That's what I would like to see happen. Because once you give too much power to any political party, you start to have this thing where people start to get arrogant and they start to think they're better than everyone else. So I really want to appeal to residents before the time period. And I don't want people to say I'm canvassing for a political party, because I'm not. I simply want people to say, this is who's doing the job. This is what we can trust, and this is what we've seen with our own eyes. If I can, I just want to jump to the debt write-off, because there was a part I left unclear. The previous period yielded results of 1.3 billion with a 50% write-off with the 245 days we had. What wasn't done was obviously extend that period for the extra 45 days to make it a full 3 months. That's why these 3 months have come into effect, to catch up and allow residents to basically write off 50% from January and prior. Anything accrued from February to June, the residents will have the opportunity to defray those costs up until possibly June 2026 next year, but with interest-free. So that is why it's important that anybody who's in the situation where they need to do it should do it, and ask family members to help, whatever the case may be, because a lot of people, especially amongst our senior citizens, are battling with the costs. And that's what we're pushing for. What we have also been pushing for is exactly what you touched on, was to say, do the officials know what they are doing? And that's something we raised previously, because you would go here and one official would contradict the next official, and some would outright say, no, we're not doing this. And that is one thing we've said to the officials last time and this time, to say, please make sure you educate your officials on the processes that need to be followed. And I think I'll just leave it there. But essentially, this is to help the residents. Ultimately, it's for the people who are suffering. So if we don't take advantage of this, we mustn't come back and say, well, the municipality didn't do anything for us.
Thank you, Ernest. So the listeners out there, please feel free to contact, progressive councillors like Councillor Ernest Smith and others. So I want to get you to wear another cap. I know you wear a school matters cap. You wore a Palestinian cap today. But I know you're involved with civic organizations, and you're quite civic active, having joined some civic movements. Now, municipal elections are coming up, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to respond. That in terms of the insight of civic organizations towards the state of service delivery, because you've been attending a lot of these meetings of the different civic movements, and people of all colors are raising concerns. So what are some of the key issues, in brief, that you envisage that municipalities have to look forward or going forward to improve?
Well, there's so many. Where do I start?
Choose the main few, and then I'll get Abdul, because I know Abdul is also proactive. So where your political stroke service delivery
When you think about it, water, sanitation are the basic service deliveries, and also when it comes to municipality, the capacity to fulfill the needs of the citizens. The main thing right now, currently, there's no water in so many places. There's no load shedding, but there's no lights. So we'll start with the basics.
So there's outages. And when you drive to Brickfield Road, up Berrydale Road, the roads still are not as good as they should be.
100%. Do we fight with the councillors?
So I'm glad why I've asked Sumaya that question is because this is a kind of attitude all citizens have to take, is to become civic active, to get involved with ratepayer associations. And I think Brother Abdul, having been involved for the last 2 years, is beginning to see the reality that you're talking about, Ernest. Abdul, on your side, briefly for 2 minutes, as the chair of ORA, I know you all made a lot of progress. You all have seen improvements in service delivery, from dealing with vagrants to dealing with security issues and security concerns, and various roads being needed to be attended to, potholes, stormwater, overflows, sewer overflows. I noticed in West Road, etc., there seem to be some improvement. So if you just can summarize what are some of the key outstanding issues and what gave rise to a kind of improvement in service delivery, having been involved with ratepayer associations.
Sure, Yunus. I think collectively, from the time, we formed the group, we've got more information of people being proactive whenever there's outages or issues, burst pipes, sewers, sewer issues, whatever, it's being reported. And I would say, as the Overport Ratepayers Association, we are the only organization that's become proactive in the sense of service delivery has become priority. We have incorporated a system which is called EWS, the Ethekwini, that whenever you have an outage, be a burst pipe or electricity issue, whatever, automatically your reference number comes up. So that service, we are very proud to say that we've worked hard to get it into the ORA, and it's operational. It works well, and we're also working with City Mender, the youngster that we had, Kiran. So we've also joined with him, hands with him as well, and he's doing a fantastic job. And he's also putting pressure onto the municipality to make sure that service delivery will be reached. And alhamdulillah, we are seeing a huge difference in these two applications that you find the outages happening and service is being put up. But one of the important things that where we see in Overport, the biggest issues we face is vagrants. And vagrants has been the biggest challenge that we've seen in our area currently right now. And it's becoming worse because obviously the vagrants have moved from the CBD and they're moving towards where we have this type of idea of people giving free food, money, beggars that's actually standing on street corners and so-called car guards. Now, we have launched a campaign that we say from the Overport, let's reclaim Overport. And the reclaim of Overport has to come from within ourselves, individual, where we must say no, stop giving. Simple. Just stop giving beggars, because beggars, whatever you're giving them ends off in drugs. And if you go and take a drive in Overport and you look at the amount of drug dealers here around the corners, they are a dime a dozen. There's plenty of them. We don't get involved into that issues as far as the drugs issues because that can be a huge problem for us to, we don't have a security base where we can go and tackle these type of issues. But there has been some big drug busts that's happened. Some people did inform SAPs and so forth that there's been drug dealing happening and there has been some big drug bust. But the increase of drugs is actually gone on because of people giving money to these vagrants. And the more money you give to the vagrants, the more encouraging drug is. So we say, reclaim Overport, stop giving, and that's the only way. I think Sumaya did a fantastic program. I actually heard you about some of the issues on drugs. And I think you had some youngsters that were here in your studio that was actually speaking about the issues of drugs, what happened to them, and how they got hooked on. So if you heard their plight and you heard the way they spoke, and it all comes from the same issue. When you got free money, you got something coming in your hand, you're ending up in these issues. So, you know what, we must we must be responsible. We cannot keep on blaming, the municipalities or blaming the councillors or blaming, police. Take responsibility from ourselves. Stop giving vagrants, beggars, and we'll have a better Overport. And let's work to this. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. I think we're already 2 hours down, 22:15, and I mentioned the program ran for 2 hours, so we started at 10 past, so I gave the full 2 hours. We covered a host of subjects. I think our guests were tremendous this evening. My concluding comments is over and above the important aspects our guest shared with us is that as Muslims, as the first clip I played, the speaker is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of this world. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, our leader, has been the guide. There is a code of conduct that Muslims must conduct. And if we adhere to that code of conduct, a prerequisite of which is our 5 times salah, our obedience to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as shown to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, then all plans will be effective. On that note, I want to thank, our guests for this evening, the co-host Sumaya Khan. She's an all-rounder. She's been doing school matters. She's been doing youth programs on drug abuse. Now she's capitalized on the Palestinian issue, but she's always also involved in civic activism, which I'm glad people are getting involved. So I encourage all our people out there, become all-rounders for your community. This is all part of Deen. It's humanitarian work. Hassan Motala, as usual, asset manager, he plays his soccer in the first hour. The second hour on Wednesday, he gives us update on financial indicators, and it keeps us optimistic that all's not bad in South Africa. We on the go. Then we've got Mustafa Darsot, as usual, political, social justice activist, always creating that awareness, on the Palestinian setup, plus worldwide on civic activism. Councillor Ernest, Ward 27, really gives us an update, gives us good news on on potential write-offs and how we should take advantage, always on the ground. Abdul Valodia, as usual, he wears 2 or 3 caps, Palestinian president of UFP, chairman of ORA, but also involved in civic activism, etc. Dr. Naledi Pandor, former minister of DIRCO, chairperson of Nelson Mandela Foundation, a very eloquent speaker. Although Sumaya gave a lot of impromptu questions, she answered it with, tremendous, appreciation to our listeners. We couldn't link up with Brother Imran Subrathie today because we wanted him to give us an update on Mkhwanazi inquest and couple of other breaking news in Parliament. But next week we'll link up with him. On that note, that brings us to the end of News in Focus for this evening. Time runs out as usual, but we try to cover as many subjects as possible. I'm sure all our guests really appreciated the show for this evening. We look forward to chatting with you once again next week around 8 o'clock. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
खुदा ने मुझे दिया माँ तेरी दुआ